Hello everyone! Just to jog your memory, I am stationed at the recap desk. Today, I will be summarizing a film that combines drama and thriller elements titled A Dangerous Method, which was released in 2011. Let's begin. The film starts with a scene featuring a mentally unstable woman named Sabina, who is loudly shouting while riding in a carriage heading towards a building. Suddenly, she begins laughing uncontrollably. A man named Dr. Jung enters the room to attend to her needs. Then, Dr. Jung employed a treatment technique. He would sit behind Sabina and question her, repeatedly asking her various inquiries. She found it difficult to respond, and this resulted in her stammering. Through persistent efforts, he was able to uncover that the root of her issues was due to her father physically abusing her and forcing her to kiss his hands after the beatings. Dr. Jung discussed it with his wife, Emma Jung. He told her about Sabina's case, and funny enough, he was going through the case a week ago without knowing that she would be directed to him. However, the method Doctor Freud suggested that they should use amazed him. He hoped it would be a safe one and not a dangerous step. But they decided to try it out. The next day, Dr. Jung took a walk with Sabina and he got to know that she has a rare ability. She knows what people would say before they speak out the words. Dr. Jung recommended this as a good talent for doctors, and once again, Sabina got reminded of her dream. She wishes to be a doctor, but her mental state has stopped that from happening. As they kept discussing when her coat fell, he used his stick to hit it, and this got Sabina unsettled. Sadly, Dr. Jung soon got assigned to another patient, so he had to leave her for a while, and this angered him. After he left, Sabina became uncontrollable and she began making a fuss. When Dr. Jung got back, he brought good news for her. She has been allowed to assist Dr. Jung in his research, and this made her so happy. Jung researched his wife, and with the help of Sabina, he was able to make progress with his research. With her ability, she detected when Emma doubted her emotions about her husband and the child she was about to give birth to, and this observation was true. When Jung got home, he was happy seeing a nursing woman tending to his new child. But his wife wasn't happy because she had given birth to a female child. He and Sabina continued their talking session. Then he got to know that while her father beats her, she was excited. And this continued. She became a sadist. After then, she began searching for any means of humiliation that would make her happy. Even when Dr. Jung was hitting her coat, she got excited. That's why she screamed so that he would stop. This realization struck Dr. Jung hard, so he went to meet Doctor Freud so they could discuss the patients and the best way to cure them. While having dinner with the family, Dr. Freud spoke bluntly, and Jung wasn't comfortable with it, but he tried to forget about it. They discussed the patients non-stop for hours. Their conversation ended when Dr. Freud made Jung realize that they've been speaking for about 13 hours. They've been so engrossed in their discussion, they both still agreed to make use of the talking cure method for their patients. After their discussion, Jung told Sabina his observation about the man. Dr. Freud happens to be so obsessed with sexuality, and with every word he says he tends to relate to a sexual term. On their way home while sailing on a ship, he and Sabina discover that they have some interest in common. One day, Dr. Freud traveled out of town, so he wrote a letter to Jung asking him to help look after a patient for a while, and the patient is Dr. Otto Gross. In the letter, he warned him that Dr. Gross bites when angry, so Jung treated him with care. He warmly welcomed the man, then employed this same method of taking cure and treating the man. But would it work out this time around? While discussing, Jung got to know about Dr. Gross' fear and cause of anger, which was his anger. He as well got to know that Dr. Gross was a flirtatious man and has a lot of mistresses with children for him. While speaking to Dr. Gross, he was supposed to cure the man with the talking method. But surprisingly, the man's words began to affect him. Gross told him never to repress anything. The next day, Sabina helped him in his research by writing what the people they had gathered felt like saying with mixed emotions on their faces. While she was doing this, Dr. Gross' words began to affect him, so he stared at Sabina for a long while, but was later able to control himself. He continued his talking session with Dr. Gross, who asked him if he has ever slept with any of his patients, and he nodded negatively. Then Gross told him about the talking cure he does use for his patient. He tries to convince them that they have an illness if they don't wish to live with a man to get what he wants. He doesn't repress desires, but this got his license to be questioned because of his therapy. A lady ended up killing herself after reading a book. Sabina realized that she has no sexual experience, and probably this was what was causing her depression and anxiety mood at the same time. So she wanted to have experience while Jung was becoming affected by Dr. Gross's words, so the both of them shared a kiss. She told him to visit her in her room if he wants to. Dr. Gross further urged Jung to take the initiative in living with Sabina, who wanted it, but Jung still wanted to remain cool, not going against his profession. However, the talking method was against him this time around. Seeing some sexual pictures on the wall of Dr. Gross' room made his barriers break. Later, Jung goes to Sabina's house and breaks the taboo by getting intimate with her. The next day, Emma tells Jung that she has a surprise for him. She gives him a bow with red sails that he always wanted. After seeing his wife's love for him, Jung realizes that what he is doing is wrong, so he goes to Sabina's house and tells her that they should stop their affair as he feels guilty for cheating on his wife. But Sabina persuades him to continue the affair and asks him to punish her just like her father used to. Sometime later, Jung goes to meet with Freud. Now that Otto is gone, Freud decides to adopt Jung as his heir. Freud and Jung discuss their theories of psychoanalysis, but they are beginning to disagree with each other frequently, which is causing cracks in their friendship. In one meeting, Freud tells Jung there is a rumor that Jung has taken one of his patients as a mistress, but Jung denies doing any such thing. Realizing that he can no longer hide his affair, Jung ends his affair with Sabina. Sabina tries to persuade him, but Jung has made up his mind. Sabina is devastated by this as she has fallen in love with Jung. After a couple of days, Sabina arrives at Jung's office and fights with him because he told her mother about their affair. Jung says that her mother already knew about the affair from the anonymous letter she received. He also tells Sabina that from now on, he is her doctor and she is his patient. Sabina angrily grabs a knife and cuts Jung's face. She then pays him 20 francs for the consultation, fees and leaves. Later, Sabina writes a letter to Freud, asking him to allow her to meet with him on a matter of great interest to both of them. After reading the letter, Freud writes a letter to Jung and asks him if he knows about her. Jung replies with a letter saying that she was the cause that brought them together. He also asks the professor to act as a go-between them and avert a disaster. Freud then writes a letter to Sabina and says that what he understands is that she and Jung used to be good friends, but not anymore. Whatever the issue they have, they should solve it without his involvement. After reading his letter, Sabina goes to Jung's office, where she learns that Jung is leaving the hospital. She accuses Jung of making Freud believe she's lying about their affair, so she demands Jung write a letter to Freud and tell him the truth about their affair. She reminds him that she could have publicly damaged him, but chose not to. So Jung agrees to her demand and sends a letter to Freud, confessing about his affair with Sabina. After reading the letter, Freud writes a letter to Sabina and apologizes to her. He also admires her way of resolving the conflict she had with Jung. A few years later, Sabina goes to meet Jung at his house to work on her dissertation. While working on her dissertation, Sabina tells Jung that when she graduates, she will leave Zurich and move to Vienna. Jung breaks down and begs not to leave, but Sabina has made up her mind. 2 years later, in Vienna, Sabina graduated as a psychiatrist. She goes to meet Freud at his office where they discuss psychoanalysis. Although she always sides with him, she believes Freud and Jung should coexist so that the progress of psychoanalysis doesn't stop. But Freud isn't interested in reconciliation and tells Sabina that he is going to assign 1 or 2 of his patients to her. Jung and Freud continue exchanging letters for some time, but after increasing hostilities and accusations regarding the differences in their conceptualization of psychoanalysis, they decide to end their friendship. 1 year later, Sabina meets Emma at her house. Sabina is now married to a Russian doctor and is pregnant. Emma tells Sabina that after Jung cut off his ties with Freud, he is not well, so she asks Sabina to help him. Jung is sitting all by himself near a river. Sabina sits next to him and realizes that Jung is really not doing well. Jung explains that he has been getting apocalyptic dreams due to which he is unable to sleep. Sabina tells him that she is returning back to Russia with her husband. She then asks Jung about his new mistress. Jung says that she is just like Sabina, who reminds him of the time he and Sabina used to spend together. He tells Sabina that he regrets leaving her, but there is nothing he can do now to change it. In the film's footnote, we learn about the fates of the 4 psychoanalysts. Gross starved to death in Berlin in 1920. Freud died of cancer in London in 1939 after being driven out of Vienna by the Nazis. Sabina trained a number of analysts in the Soviet Union before she and her 2 daughters were shot by the Nazis in 1942. Jung emerged from a nervous breakdown to become the world's leading psychologist before dying in 1961. So this was the story of a dangerous method. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe to the Recap Desk, and click the bell icon to get new movie recaps.